Begin now by talking a little bit about worldviews, and want to just note that as individuals, each of us has a worldview, but I'm sure in your work, you've also noticed that teams have worldviews, departments and organizations have worldview. Finance can be very different than engineering, which is different than marketing, and so on. Communities have worldviews. I lived for a long time in a community where if you weren't fifth generation, you weren't from there. In fact, if you go to Maine, they talk about being from away. And cultures have worldviews, and many of us do a lot of multicultural work, and so we navigate those different worldviews in that work. So one of the things that's sort of important to recognize is that worldviews are the lenses through which we see and experience the world. So each of us is experiencing the world around us through our own personal worldviews, our individual lenses, and we need to take great care not to assume that others are seeing things, experiencing things the way that we are. That's a recipe for a challenge. So I'm going to put a picture up, and I want you to just very rapidly check in on your reaction to the picture. Okay, after noticing your reaction, and this picture was on the internet and created enormous conversation. The reality of the picture is that the kids are on their smartphones, using them in place of those old clunky things we used to carry around in museums, audio guide kinds of things. But a typical reaction is kids on their phone, ignoring the artwork, and so on. And that's a worldview interpretation. Darren had mentioned the ladder of inference. One of the things that is important to sort of recognize in all of this is that from the moment we see something to the moment that we make a decision about it is 13 milliseconds. And this is from research at MIT, and it could actually be faster, but they can't time it faster. So that's how quickly your worldview is influencing the conclusions, the decisions that you make. Then you move on to action. Importantly, you're not born with a worldview, but you're born into many worldviews. That could be family, could be spiritual life, it could be the culture of, it could be geography, environment. All of those things influence us, and we experience them as we grow up. So we're not born with a worldview, but we're born into many. And in fact, we like to say that worldviews are locally constructed and socially constructed. So our worldviews are really constructed in relationship with others. And that relationship can be relationship with humans, relationship with nature, relationship with spiritual beings. They're constructed in relationship. Another thing that's important to note is that our worldviews are not fixed, that they can shift and change over time. They can expand, or as some of us during the pandemic had our worldviews contracted. But I like to say my worldview as a 10-year-old farm kid is a lot different than my worldview as a grandfather. And as we've experienced things in life, our worldviews can shift or change.